Well, I hope this is recording because this is a film that I wanted to make for absolutely ages on this particular product. And no surprise what that is. It is, as it says on the box, a Coldsteel pocket bushman. I sort of originally came upon the idea of getting this particular knife simply because I had a small garden knife which is brown in colour with a brown lanyard, and I dropped it in the compost bin one day on the allotment and realised after that had I not been able to find it that evening, it was a carbon knife. It would have gone rusty and may well have gone missing forever. So it set me thinking about buying a stainless steel knife that I could use as what I would call an everyday cutting tool. And I think people get very kind of worked up sometimes when they're talking about knives. And to me, this is a utility object. And that's my approach. That's what I'm thinking of. You know, does it fit what I need to do? Is it practical for the purpose? Will it do exactly what I need it to do on a day-to-day basis, etc., etc. So what you get in the package are the infamous instructions. I think they had to include these because I think with the first generation of knives, people were opening them and having real problems cutting themselves or catching themselves on the blade. There is a pocket clip. I've actually removed mine. It's in the bag there. A little stainless steel pocket clip which is held on with 3 very tiny screws. There's a safety label in there and a piece of very cheap paracord. This is what comes on the back of the knife to actually open the locking mechanism, and you know, for when you open and shut the blade. I replaced mine, as you can see here. And what I like about this knife instantly is that you can open this knife. You can open this knife single-handedly. It's not what I would call a quick deploy knife by any means, but it is very, very simple and very straightforward to open that, as you just saw. And when you're closing the knife, what I do is I put my hand across the back of the blade. I don't know if you can see that. I then sort of pinch just around here where the hinge is, where the joint is. I pull back on the lanyard very slightly like that, and then the blade will actually close. And I'm not being you know, funny or anything, but I can basically open and close that knife whenever I want very easily. I don't find it a difficult thing. It's probably not the easiest knife to open, simply because of the size of the handle. I don't have big hands, and the actual movement when you're actually opening the thumb stud here is a kind of a movement forward and around, so it's a sweep of the thumb round. But the knife itself is all stainless steel. If you look here, you'll see that on the choil here, it's very slightly curved. On the original knives, that was absolutely straight across there, and on the newer knives, there's a slight curve on that. And what that's done is it's actually allowed the thumb stud to be moved very, very slightly forward by maybe a millimetre, couple of millimetres. And I think that from a closed position, when you're actually opening that, I think it makes it a sort of slightly easier to actually open and close. In my case, what I did was I had a little lanyard hook which works really well on this. I did the little paracord sort of knot there, and that is a mahogany bead that I made, which I make every now and again for anything I'm making in leather. And the beauty of this is that if I'm using the knife and then I want to wash it in water, I can just quickly take this off, and it doesn't get soaking wet. I'm not really bothered if it does get wet, because I've actually used marine grade from a boat shop sort of paracord, which is really hard wearing and sort of resistant to UV as well. Anyway, lanyard hooks on there. Again, I put my hand across the top of the blade, so it's not going to dig into me here on the end. pinch it in the middle there, slight tug on there, and then it goes around and it closes. And it couldn't be easier than that. So personally, I've found this an incredibly easy knife to open, to close. And what I've done is I've given it a really thorough workout for over 2 weeks, and I literally went out of my way to use this every single day, from working on the allotment where I might be cutting wood, opening bags which are plastic, cutting tape on parcels, opening up boxes, cutting down very thick cardboard boxes, cutting wood. I even had to go at throwing the knife against an old door, throwing it quite a long distance into old straw bales, everything and anything I could think of for using the knife, including using it in the kitchen as just a kitchen tool, and preparing dinner, boning meat. So I've done sort of boning chicken, everything that I could think of, sort of butchering tasks that I would do in the kitchen. I've done, and I've used this knife. I haven't sharpened it since I've had it. Normally I would probably have done that, but I deliberately left it because I wanted to test how good or how, whether or not the knife actually stood up to what I wanted to do with it. And there's been a lot of sort of reviews of this particular knife, and people were making quite sort of disparaging comments about it, and they were going out of their way to basically beat the crap out of the knife itself, which I can't afford to do that. I'm looking at using it, and I have high expectations of any of my tools and equipment. I'm always really impressed if something can stand the test of time and last, but I'm not going to be beating the crap out of it. To be perfectly honest, if for instance I needed an axe, I'm going to take an axe, and things like that. I'm not going to be beating down on this blade to batten with it. I would only do that if it was an emergency and I had no other tools and no other choice. But I'm not going to abuse a good cutting tool for the sake of it, just to kind of say that I can destroy it and make it useless. This mechanism on the back here is really difficult to pull with your fingers. You can't really do that. Having the lanyard on there actually gives you a little bit of a purchase and allows you to pull back very easily on that to close it. So again, at the risk of repeating myself, I'll just gently flick that round, and it's a very slim knife. There's a slight sort of bulged out section here in the stainless steel where it's been pressed out of a single piece of plate, and I mean, I don't have massive hands, I'm generally like a medium size, medium gloves and things like that, but I find this an incredibly comfortable knife. I have seen people wrap it, when the blade is actually out. People have wrapped the knife handle itself, which makes perfect sense if you're going to be using it maybe in a camp situation where perhaps you're going to have the blade open for a while. For my own personal view, I find that the knife works really well when it's folded up. I have it in my pocket, and the lanyard I can have just sticking out of my pocket. Then when I put my hand down by my side, I can feel that, and then I've got something to actually sort of pull it out of the pocket with and grab a purchase. Plus it's fairly brightly coloured, and I thought if I did drop this on the ground, I would find it a lot easier to find the knife. But I bought that in the UK from the guys at Henny Haynes, who I've bought through them before, and I must say I'm really impressed with the knife and the price. This came to me delivered in the UK for £31.95, so that's £31.95. I think generally these are also available in the States, I think for approximately about the same price, but US $30. For £30, I'm just blown away. It's a superb knife. It's done everything that I could want from it. I have no doubt it's going to be a really durable knife. It's going to last for a long time, as long as I don't lose it. I've written a review. I did a review for Henny Haynes on their website because I was that impressed by it, and I've also asked them to notify me again when they have more of these in stock, because to be perfectly honest, I think I'd like at least 2 of them. Maybe one for a bit of modification, something I've, ideas that I've had thinking about, things that I could do. So I might have one that I could modify and change and just sort of play around with. But as it is, just a superb knife, extremely good quality, very consistent, absolutely no problems with it whatsoever. Great in the hand, fantastic feel, a good, utility sort of shaped blade that I find has been really useful for all kinds of things. You have got a little thumb opening screw here, which has got a slotted end on it, so you can actually unscrew that, and it would be ambidextrous, so you could actually be left-handed and then deploy this with your left hand if you wanted to. This is the newer generation model, as I say, with that curved choil on it and the improved mechanism in here, which doesn't have that little dip in where the spring was getting caught on the earlier models. So they've sort of resolved that issue and solved that problem. And as I said, a really nice quality knife. And the steel itself is what they call carpenter steel, which is BD1 stainless steel alloy. The older model was the 4116 Krupp stainless. Not having one of the older ones, I can't say whether one is better than the other. The only issue I've had with the knife is that when it came to trying to fire start with a fire steel on the spine of the blade, I was getting nowhere with that. It is a stainless steel knife, it's not a carbon steel knife. But having said that, that's not the end of the world. It is a fantastic knife for the money, and I would thoroughly recommend it. So I just wanted to do my review. There are lots of reviews out there, some of them quite negative. I just wanted to say, I have been using it in a kind of everyday sort of situation, in a realistic use situation, not abuse situation, and I've found it to be an extremely, good product. So that's the Coldsteel Pocket Bushman. As I say, UK around £31 or thereabouts. Really excellent knife. A great addition to a kind of outdoor working backpack, where I would probably have 2 or 3 basic tools, maybe a small handsaw, an axe, and something like this. So from that perspective, really fits the bill well for me, and an extremely good product. So with that in mind, I will leave you all in peace, and I will talk soon.